Hi, it's Kristen, and I'm going to be reading a mystery book. So, as I'm currently filming this, we are just under 2 weeks away from the start of Independent Bookshop Week here in the UK, which is the 13th of June and it goes until the 20th of June. And to celebrate, I thought I would buy from an independent bookshop that I really love. Riad Books, which are an online independent bookshop, were having a little sale with the code Heatwave when the UK was struggling with the heat. And I've always been really intrigued by their mystery book selection. So you basically just pick the genre out of like fantasy, sci-fi, horror, romantasy, or young adult, I believe, are the categories. And you pay for the book and they will send you a mystery book within the genre that you've said. They do say that you can send them your Goodreads or Storygraph and they'll check your read books section so that they don't send you something that you've already read, which I think is great. So I did that and she emailed back and said, great, thanks. She'd checked my profile and the book that she's chosen is not one that I've already read. So that's exciting. However, I am slightly nervous that even if it's not one I've read, it might be one I own because I do have a huge TBR and she does only check like the read books and my whole TBR is not on my profile anyway as like want to read or anything. So I'm going to open the box. I put it to the side and I've not opened it till now even though it arrived a few days ago. I did also order a couple of other things because they had a book by Genevieve Gornacek who wrote The Witch's Heart, which I love, and it was like on sale anyway, discounted anyway, and then even further discounted with the extra Heatwave sale that she was doing. So I thought, why not get this book that's like double discounted. And then I also came across another book on there that I'd literally never heard of but sounded so interesting to me that I thought, why not get it if I can get it discounted. So, oh my gosh, this box is difficult to open. I feel like I'm not opening it in the best way. It's all very well wrapped. But now see, they are all wrapped up. All their books come like this with this gorgeous wax seal. They always include a bookmark, which is gorgeous. And they're always like brown paper packages tied up with strings. Now I don't know which one is the mystery book. I'm just gonna have to open all of these and see which one's the mystery one. I'm thinking maybe the mystery one is the one that's got the wax seal on it. Let's just open them all. So on a glimpse, I actually think it might be this one because the colours of the cover are not what I remember the other books that I ordered being. So here we go. Ooh. Okay. Mother of Rome. Powerful and fierce reimagining of the earliest Roman legend, the twins Romulus and Remus, mythical founders of history's greatest empire and the woman whose sacrifice made it all possible. The names Romulus and Remus may be immortalised in map and stone and chronicle, but their mother exists only as a preface to her son's journey. The princess turned oath-breaking priestess condemned to death alongside her children, but she did not die, she survived, and so does her story. Beautiful, royal, rich, Rhea has it all until her father loses his kingdom in a treacherous coup, and she is sent to the Order of the Vestal Virgins to ensure she will never produce an heir. except when mortals scheme, gods laugh. Rhea becomes pregnant and human society turns against her. Abandoned, ostracized, and facing the gravest punishment, Rhea forges a dangerous deal with the divine, one that will forever change the trajectory of her life and her beloved land. To save her sons and reclaim their birthright, Rhea must summon nature's mightiest force, a mother's love, and fight. This is an interesting choice. I don't typically pick up books about like being a mother and stuff, because like that it's not so much something I'm interested in. However, saying that, the books I have picked up that involve prominent female characters being mothers, I have really liked. So I don't know if she like based this sort of off what is on my read stuff on my Goodreads profile. I did pick up Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati last year, and that obviously is about Clytemnestra in Greek mythology, and she is quite a prominent mother figure. Whether you think she's a good mother or not, she is a mother with several children, and a lot of her story is based on like what happens to her children. And I've also really loved The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, which is about Angrboda and prominently features like her being a mother to several godlike mythological being like children. So that's interesting. I've never heard of this, which is exciting. And I don't think I've read any Roman mythology before. I've read a lot of Greek mythology retellings, and I've read a couple of Norse mythology retellings, but I don't think I've read anything from like Roman legend. So that's exciting. An interesting choice. I haven't read it and I don't own it, so that's good. And yeah, I've heard of, at the bottom here, her other book, Lauren J. Aber's other book, Medusa's Sisters. I have heard of that, that rings a bell, but I've not heard of this one. So I'm gonna read this and I will let you know my thoughts. So I'm barely into the book. I'm like 19 pages in, so I'm not really sharing thoughts here. I'm intrigued. I want to know what's going on, but I don't have a ton to say other than it has already annoyed me slightly because we've had the phrase Rhea could care less to suggest that she doesn't care about something, and I'm like, it's couldn't care less, because if you could care less, then you care. So if you're trying to get across the point that you don't care, then you couldn't care less. This bugs me every time I hear or read people say could care less. It really irks me, because I'm like, you mean the opposite of what you're saying. Anyway, that's a little nitpick. Let's not dwell on it. Let's move on. Let's enjoy the book. I fear I've not been updating as much as I should have, or so far at all, because I'm like halfway through the book. I'm really enjoying this. Yay! So we have Rhea Sylvia, who is our main character, and she is the princess of this kingdom, and her father is the king. And then a bunch of family tragedies happen, and her father very much goes into like a depression, and the people around him, like his advisors and his brother, are manipulating him and caring for him by giving him medicine that is actually not the best for him. And because of that, we see this whole turnover in their political setup there, who the king is. And underneath that all is very much a hatred and like a revenge against Rhea from her uncle, and he is just not a nice man and he doesn't treat, well, anyone particularly well, but especially not the women in his life. There is a lot of like mistreatment of women from a lot of the male characters in here, which is very frustrating to read. But I do think that Rhea is a very interesting character, and she tries to take her life into her own hands to like whatever extent she can. Whether it works out for her or not is another matter. And we also get her cousin, the new king's daughter, Antho, as a perspective, and it's nice to see like the similarities between the two female characters, but also the differences, and how much they just like care for and love one another as family, as like a sisterhood. I really love their love and devotion to each other, and how they'll like try and do stuff for each other in like whatever way they can, but they can only ever like do so much because they are also like at the mercy of the men around them. But I've just reached a point where I'm talking spoilers because it's hard not to, where Rhea is in a very difficult position, very much a you're gonna die kind of position, and Antho has reached out to the gods, or one god in particular, to try and save Rhea. And the point I've just got to, Rhea maybe being saved, and we will see what comes from that. But yeah, I'm really liking this so far. I think the point of view characters are really interesting. I'm interested to see where this goes because, like I said, I've read a lot of Greek mythology, so I know like quite a few of the myths in there and different retellings of those myths. But like Roman legend and myth, I've heard like names like Romulus and Remus, but I don't actually know the story of those characters. But this is very interesting to me. I'm liking it a lot. It's very readable, like I'm getting through it at a really quite quick pace. And I've had a really busy week, so I didn't know how much I would actually get read this week. But I'm really enjoying this, finding it very readable, very interesting, even though like it was a sort of slow start for much like action or plot to initially happen. We were just getting like set up and character set up and political set up. That was all very interesting to me too, and felt like, yeah, still very readable, very interesting, and definitely like got me into it straight away. I mean, we're set up with a scenario and then we go back a bit and see how we get to that scenario. So that was very intriguing because it starts off feeling like an absolute shit show. You're like, how did we get here? And then we very much find out. Now that Rhea is potentially being saved from her deathly situation, and she is currently pregnant with her children, I feel like we're like kicking off into like a second act kind of thing. So I will not be able to read anymore today. I'm going to my friend's hen party, and it's like an all-day thing, and I'm staying at another friend's house tonight. So I will potentially read tomorrow when I get back, and I imagine, hungover or not, I will be very tired, so I might just then spend the whole day in bed, and hopefully I can get another like good chunk of the way through this then. Very much enjoying Mother of Rome so far. Book threw me ever so slightly. I'm just over halfway through, and at the halfway point, she has the babies, the children. It's a pretty integral turning point. But so far we've just had Ria's perspective and Antho, and suddenly we have other perspectives from men. And it's really thrown me. And I get that we have them for like world building and for moments when the women aren't around. It's like filling in gaps in the story that they wouldn't be in. But it's also just thrown me off that halfway through we're suddenly slightly changing the points of view. We'll see if it continues or if we get more points of view as well. I don't know. Yes, we're definitely getting more perspectives. We've had like Numitor, Leandros, we're getting Remus, Romulus, lots of different perspectives. And we're also like, we've jumped through time quite a lot. So like the first half of this book was just Ria and Antho's perspectives, and went over the course of like 9-10 months maybe. And the second half of this book we've had lots of other perspectives, and we've gone over the course of like 17 years. So definitely some differences there. I'm still enjoying it. I feel like I don't know, I was going to say action is picking up, but it's more like political action is picking up, and some manipulating and plotting is going on. So I'm near the end. I'm like less than 100 pages from the end now, so I think I'm just going to finish and I'll give you like my final thoughts on everything. So I finished the book yesterday. I'm going to do like a full wrap up review tomorrow, when I actually like have the book with me, because I'm currently at work. I've been working all day, so like I didn't bring the book in with me, and I want to like film from the comfort of my room. But I did just want to jump in because I had like a thought, and I think it's just that I've been like accumulating a lot of like mythology retellings, whether that's like Norse or Greek, etc. I think there's like a big argument within like feminist retellings of like how feminist are they actually? Like, are they genuinely feminist, or are they just retelling a well-known myth from the perspective of a woman instead of the man who's normally centered? And I have read some like retellings that I wouldn't necessarily say are feminist. They're just from the perspective of a woman. Doesn't mean I didn't like them. There are many that I've still enjoyed, even though they're not like actually feminist feeling. But this one, I would argue, is actually a feminist retelling, because I think the female characters in the story are all very like nuanced. There are lots of like different types of women. So you're not just getting like all women are good and it's the men who are bad. Like I think you have good women, you have good women who do bad things, you have bad women who you can maybe sympathize with in some respects, who maybe like do a good thing here and there. And you have like women who are all the shades in between, like morally grey. So I think you've got a lot of female characters who are all quite different, motivated by different things. And I do think that most of the women, whether in big ways or small ways, do like try and have as much agency as they can, which to some degree is limited given like the historical and political context of the story of the time. But they do like try and do things that they want to do, and for like various different purposes, whether it be like for their own gain, for their own selfishness, for the good of their family, for the good of like the kingdom. And so yeah, we've got a lot of women with a lot of different like characterizations. We have female characters like actually taking action, moving the plot forward, not just being like in the story but not part of the story. And by the end of the story they do like really enact change, and they are integral to the way thpo play out, and they're definitely like leading and having big parts in like society, the political structure changing. I think they're all left in quite an interesting place in the story, and they do feel like impactful and powerful, like obviously especially like Rhea and Antho. And so I would say that of all the like feminist retellings of like mythology and legend, this is one that I would say is actually genuinely quite feminist in its retelling. So yeah, that was just something I was thinking about, and I wanted to like remember to say, because tomorrow I might have forgot I had this thought. So yeah, if you're looking for like a feminist retelling, I do think this is actually quite feminist. So I finished reading Mother of Rome by Lauren J.A. Bear, and I really liked this one. This really gave me like Clytemnestra vibes, because it's about like motherhood, and you have this like sisterly cousin relationships. I don't know if she may have looked at what I've most recently read and thought like, ooh, a lot of mythology, books about, yeah, like motherhood and interesting female characters, or like if this was just like a general fantasy book recommendation that happened to work out really well for me. This is interesting that it was a fantasy recommendation, because when I received it, I thought, okay, so it's like a mythology retelling, so you do have like gods and stuff, but like how fantasy is it? Turns out very. We do have the gods, we have like shape-shifting, we do have a lot of fantasy elements in here, so it's not like a mythology retelling that if it weren't for like the gods involvement it would actually feel like more of a historical novel. This one definitely does fit in the fantasy realm of mythology legend retellings, so it was a great pick from that perspective, and it was a great like personal pick for me because I had a great time with it. Like I said in the last clip, I really enjoyed the female characters, how like nuanced they all were. I really liked Antho and Rhea's relationship. I liked how Rhea's relationships with like a lot of other characters were quite complicated, and I felt like I could understand characters even when they were like frustrating me, like Numitor. I think like I can understand where he's coming from and like why he does some of the stuff he does, while he also frustrates me. And that's very much like Rhea's relationship and reaction to him as well. Like, she understands why he is like not wanting to be present because he has suffered so much grief, but at the same time so is she, and like he should really be there for her, but he like can't make himself be. And when he does sort of recover from that and is there for like her cousin and her nephew, she's like really happy, but at the same time quite upset that you didn't get it together when I needed your help. So I really like the complicated familial and political relationships presented in here. I do think Rhea and her interactions with the gods and goddesses are again very interesting, and the way her interactions with the different gods and goddesses play out, very interesting. Never really knew where we were going to go. And yeah, I had a really good time with this story. It's like the first Roman legend mythology retelling that I've read. There's a lot of references obviously to like Greek mythology within here, and like the Roman counterparts to well-known Greek figures and stuff. The first half, when we're mostly with Rhea and Antho, felt like the stronger half of the book to me. But that is like when we're centered on a much smaller time frame, and we go to like a grander scale covering years of time, and we get lots of other perspectives to like add context and to be able to have moments where Rhea and Antho aren't around. While it was interesting to read from certain perspectives, I didn't feel as connected to those characters necessarily in certain moments, but like I also understand what the book was doing in terms of including that, because yeah, we did get to see stuff that Rhea and Antho weren't around for, and so we got like more of an idea of what was happening over these moments in this time frame. I did get quite emotional at the end, and I did like the ending. It felt like it was the only way for it to end, even though you do have like some sadder moments in there, or it doesn't like all work out perfectly. It feels quite bittersweet. So yeah, overall a really good pick from Dryad Books, and just like a really enjoyable reading time. I feel like I just like had a lot of fun reading this. I would give this like a really, really solid 4 stars. It wasn't like the best, and this isn't necessarily like the author's fault, it's more an editing or printing fault, but there were quite a lot of like misprints or like double words or like letters in the wrong place. So I feel like the editing could have been tighter, but that's not a fault of the story at all. As a story, I had a great time, and I never felt like it got too preachy. There were moments in here where I worried we were getting a little too preachy into like motherhood as a thing, in that like we have a character, one of the gods, who says like all mothers are miracles, and as someone who like love my mum, think mothers are amazing. Like pregnancy and like giving birth is like such an intense thing that like women put their bodies through, but as someone who's like not super attached to the idea of like being a mother, and I don't think that like marriage and motherhood is like the pinnacle of life, that like you're not accomplished if you don't have children, and like you don't really understand love until you have a child. I think those arguments are bullshit. There were a couple of moments where I worried that we were getting too into like motherhood is the most important thing, but I do feel like anytime we veered in that direction, we did then pull away, and I don't think that that was like the ultimate story of this. I think the mothers do have very intense, poignant relationships with their children in here. But again, we also have like Antho, who doesn't have a good relationship with her mum, so we're not going like all mums are great. And I think the relationships between other characters like Rhea and Tiberinus, can't fully remember his name, and then like Rhea and Antho are like just as important, or like hold just as much weight and like meaningful moments as like mother-child relationships. So I don't think we get too into like mothers are the most important thing, but we do obviously have a lot of like talk of motherhood and love and that kind of thing in here. So it's like the basis of the book, but I think it's fairly well balanced throughout. So yeah, a really strong 4-star read. Very much enjoyed this. Like, I so rarely buy a book and then immediately read it, but like I'm glad I did, because for the purposes of this video, because otherwise I feel like this is one of those books that I could buy because it sounded interesting, but then sits on my shelf for ages, because I'm always like, I'm interested in that, but it's not like top priority. So I'm glad that I decided to do this video and that this book got read quickly, because like, great book. One of my faves of the year so far. Have you read this book? Do let me know down below. Have you read Lauren J. Abert's other book, which I think is Medusa's Sisters? If you have, let me know if that's worth a read, because I would definitely read more from her. But yeah, I will leave the link to Dryad Bookshop down below, because they always like package everything so beautifully and always have a really interesting selection of books on there, and like other little knickknacks and things. So I definitely recommend buying from them. And I do think I would use their like mystery book service again. Maybe I'll do another one where I pick from a different genre, like I choose their sci-fi mystery book selection. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!